crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Over the Edge, released for the second time, February 19th, 1982. It was written by Charles S. Haas and Tim Hunter, directed by Jonathan Kaplan, and released by Warner Brothers Pictures. In 1973, the small San Francisco suburb of Foster City was grappling with a crime wave perpetuated by violent preteen gangs dubbed mouse packs by local reporters Bruce Kuhn and James A. Feinfrock in their article Mouse Packs, Kids on a Crime Spree.
Those are fake names. Feinfrock?
Yep. He had a very fine frock, though, to be fair. The article makes mention of arson, vandalism, and even regular knife-point muggings conducted by children as young as 9. The shocking story of Foster City caught the attention of screenwriters Charles S. Haas and Tim Hunter, who traveled to the troubled town to speak directly with some of the kids mentioned in the sensational article. The script was initially titled Mouse Packs, from the term coined in the article, but it seems an odd fit for what the film became. And I also wouldn't put it past Disney to threaten legal action, claiming it could be confused for the Mickey Mouse Club or something. When it came time to securing locations, most of the approached schools turned the filmmakers down, uncomfortable with the subject matter. Eventually, the production found a home at John Evans Jr. High School, playing the part of the film's fictional New Granada School. The film began shooting with a budget of $3 million, including $1 million loaned from producer George Lido, and an attached associate producer in the form of Minnesota Vikings quarterback Joe Kapp. Director Jonathan Kaplan was excited to work with producer Lido because of his reputation as an agent of blacklisted talent in the wake of the HUAC hearings. Kaplan's own parents, composer Saul Kaplan and actress Frances Heflin, had themselves been blacklisted, and Father Saul Kaplan would go on to score this very film. Really love the score here. Like, the soundtrack is great from the music that they use, but also the original score is great. Once the Mouse Pack's title was scrapped, it was renamed On the Edge, but after the first screening for the studio, the filmmakers were persuaded to accentuate the title to Over the Edge to better reflect the escalating chaos of the film's climax. The film's eventual cult status has gone on to directly inspire filmmakers like Richard Linklater and Harmony Korine on their films Dazed and Confused and Kids, and Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain was also a big fan, once crediting the film with defining his whole personality.
Really?
The Smells Like Teen Spirit video was designed specifically to resemble some of the chaos from this movie.
That seems, I guess, it just seems a little odd.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel very inspiring.
But obviously, if you look most places, it'll say that this film came out in 79, and it seems like the studio almost instantly retracted it, either because they were worried about violence erupting in the wake of the release of, like, The Warriors, which also led to gang shootings in theaters, and so they held on to it for a while and then re-released it in 82. We fade up on a billboard for a housing development called New Granada, the slogan, Tomorrow's City, Today. The guitar solo opening of Cheap Trick's Speak Now plays over the shot. The camera zooms out to reveal a large empty field which will presumably give rise to more residential development. An opening crawl informs us that in 1978, 110,000 kids under the age of 18 were arrested for crimes of vandalism in the United States. This story is based on true incidents occurring during the 70s in a planned suburban community of condominiums and townhomes where city planners ignored the fact that a quarter of the population was 15 years old or younger. We pan across a long row of identical condominiums and then dissolve to New Granada's rec center, which, judging from its architecture, was an afterthought for the town.
Yeah, it's like a mini airplane hangar.
Yeah, it's like one of those. It's like a short section of one of those 20-foot wide corrugated pipes.
Yeah.
And they just cut it in half to make like a stainless steel rainbow.
Yeah, it's like a farm outbuilding.
Yeah. And then they just framed walls, doors, and windows in the sides of it. Inside the rec center, we see Counselor Julia letting everyone know that the center is closing soon for the day. She catches one of the kids drinking a beer and escorts him out, since it is not permitted here. We see our lead character, Carl, played by Michael Eric Kramer, playing a game of pool, while nearby, girls discuss a recent date one of them had. The girl telling the story is wearing a tank top that says "sexy bitch" across the front of it, and we notice Matt Dillon as Richie White rising from the background to listen in on their story.
Anyways, his mom walks in and she's giving me the evil eye, you know. And I realize that my shirt's unbuttoned down to here.
Down to where?
Sex pervert.
The girl listening to the story jokes that Richie is gay and hits on girls to hide it, and he's secure enough in his masculinity not to contradict her.
He just does that so people won't know he's queer.
Yeah, believe it.
he's walking away. I also like his look here too. He's wearing like kind of a tank top, but he's got a full bare midriff. He's got like 6 inches between the bottom of the shirt and the top of his pants. Carl, Richie, their stoner friend Claude, and his mute brother Johnny all leave the rec center together talking about the girls they have to choose from in this town. They spot Carl's crush, Cory, driving by, staring idly out the passenger side window of a car. Claude repeatedly assures Carl that she is not worth his time.
I heard you ran off with the rock group last year.
Oh, yeah, I heard she was going with one of those guys.
What? I heard she was going with all them guys.
How do you know, man? You never even talked to the girl.
After they split up, we have a fun bit of dialogue between Claude and his brother Johnny to indicate they are siblings.
Stuffed peppers tonight. We don't want to miss that, do we, Johnny?
And his brother's just like shaking his head, nope. Now we cut to a freeway overpass and 2 kids, one in a denim jacket and one in a coonskin cap with an air rifle. The shooter fires through the windshield of a passing police car below them. The cop inside, Officer Doberman, swerves to a stop and then follows the kids as they race away on bikes. We watch them ride their bikes over the horizon, and then strangely, the shot freeze frames on the empty street for the remainder of the opening credits for Cheap Trick's Hello There.
Yeah, what I thought was going to happen was they were going to go over, and then they were just going to come immediately back because the cop was going to be coming from that direction.
Somehow he looped around them, cartoon logic. But yeah, so Hello There here is the second of 4 Cheap Trick songs on the soundtrack, since the young cast had a lot of influence on what songs would be included in the film. We cut back to Mark and Richie walking down the street, and Richie tells a story he's told before, apparently, about a time he was caught taking something from a bike shop.
About 10 times.
Yeah, they told my mother to sign this thing saying I was incorrectable.
Incorrigible.
Which is funny because incorrigible literally means incorrectable. So he was technically correct, and thus not correctable.
But he also doesn't learn this for the rest of this movie,
right,
making him both incorrectable and incorrigible.
Yes. The kids outrunning the cop on bikes race by and warn Richie and Carl that an angry cop is following them. Richie and Carl duck into the bushes, but Doberman finds them there and mistakes them for the overpass kids.
Yeah, why did they hide?
Because they were like, oh, angry cop, I don't know, I'm supposed to hide when that happens.
It just seems like if you just continued walking, they're looking for somebody on bikes, they would have just blown by you. Well,
hindsight is 20/20, but also I don't think this cop would have seen them the way they were hiding in that bush. He just saw them because he needed to for the story. Presumably, this cop is named Doberman because in the 80s, Dobermans were the go-to scary guard dog breed. I feel like that's not the case anymore. Now it's pit bulls that are the scary ones.
Yeah,
it was Dobermans in the 80s, and then the 90s and into the aughts were like the German Shepherds.
Right, because but even in like Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, those were Dobermans, right?
Yeah, everything we've seen so far has been Dobermans because it's all been 70s and 80s. Even on MacGyver, Dobermans were always the guard dogs.
Addams Family.
The agency? But they claimed no one else was available. They suggested a Doberman.
Doberman throws the boys up against his squad car and frisks them for weapons. He finds a small knife in Richie's pocket.
How big is this blade, White?
3 inches. Almost as big as your dick.
Watch your mouth, kid.
Sorry. I just love, they're just...
complete disrespect
for the cops at all times.
I do wish that he'd said a little bigger than your dick instead of about as big as your dick. Richie continues to hassle, because 3 inches is obviously a huge dick, right, everybody? Richie continues to hassle Officer Doberman until the man shoves him in the back of the squad car. A man named Jerry Cole, president of the local HOA, parks a classic car outside a Cadillac dealership owned by Carl's father, Mr. Willat. Jerry speaks with Willat about some investors from Houston, led by Mr. Sloan himself, coming to take a look at their community. We cut back to the station where Doberman interrogates Carl and Richie. He asks Richie about his Acapulco gold belt buckle with a big marijuana leaf.
Friend gave it to me.
What is it?
It's a leaf.
What kind?
Poison ivy, I think. Yes.
Doberman turns his attention on Carl and reminds him that he still has a decent reputation. Suddenly, Doberman's asking about the identities of the kids on bikes that he was chasing. Carl doesn't give up any names, but he thinks they might be classmates. Back at the dealership, Carl's dad gets a phone call about his son's arrest and the switchblade they found on Richie. He lies to his coworkers that the call from the police was regarding parking tickets, and he leaves to take care of it. Another of the cops asks Richie to come clean about who shot at their car, but he ain't no rat.
I only got one law. A kid who tells on another kid is a dead kid.
Well, that's a good rule, kid.
That's right.
It'll serve you well in jail someday.
Damn straight.
Richie is muscled roughly out of the room, and Carl is given a lecture about how his reputation is being sullied by his association with these friends. He also threatens Carl's father's reputation if these arrests get any more serious. We cut to Richie's mom driving him home, and she hates cops too, so she's pretty chill about all this.
Yeah, she's great.
Come on, honey. They told me something about a knife.
Oh, you must mean the now file. Oh, yeah.
Now we cut to Mr. Willat's car driving Carl home, where the mood is considerably more tense. He advises his son to stop hanging out with Richie White before he ends up in much deeper trouble. On the way home, they pass a billboard that used to say future site of the new Granada Twin Cinema and Roller Rink, but a new sign is being installed over that one in sections. The new text contains the words ideal and business. We'll see it completed later. At home, Carl runs up to his room to listen to music, and his father explains to his mother what happened today.
You weren't too hard on Carl, were you, dear?
I broke both his legs. Didn't you see him go up the steps?
In the room, we can hear Carl's music, Cheap Trick's Surrender, which always makes me think of the pilot episode of later series Freaks and Geeks, which covers a lot of the same ground as this film. I think it's like literally the exact same time period, like starts at the end of the 70s and into the early 80s.
Yeah, they weren't quite as delinquent in that show, though.
That would have been season 2 if they ever got it. Now we cut to class in session. They put out the lights, and the teacher begins a slideshow of the works of Hieronymus Bosch. We see a quick exchange between Carl and Claude, where Claude confesses that the drugs he took, which he thought were speed, may in fact have been acid, and this is maybe not the best drug to be on while learning about Bosch's famous triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delights.
Or is it the best?
Or maybe that's the best way to experience Bosch's work. Same note here. But if you're not familiar, it's full of a lot of psychedelic, satanic imagery, and Claude is not enjoying it.
Yeah. It's such an interesting whole piece together.
Yeah.
That, like, even when you close it up, it's got stuff on the outside.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I actually think it would have been funny if it turned out the drugs were a placebo, and he was just freaked out by the art. He was just like, oh my God, I think I'm on acid. It looks like those demons are eating that human heart. And it's like, no, that's happening.
No, they are. It's my favorite painting. I have an entire book on it. It's so great.
It's pretty great. Now we cut to an assembly where a teacher addresses the class about yesterday's freeway incident. In response, they've decided to ban smoking anywhere near the campus and endorse a 9:30 p.m. curfew in the town. That'll stop people shooting at cars at 2 in the afternoon. The kids are then shown a short film about the dangers of vandalism. It's a real 1976 public service announcement entitled Destruction, Fun or Dumb, which sounds like something Troy McClure would be in.
A vandal is defined as one who willfully, wantonly, and ignorantly damages and destroys valuable or beautiful things.
Ignorantly?
Yeah. Well, if they don't know that it's valuable.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that you were a vandal.
Yeah, if you accidentally knock over like a Ming vase.
Yeah, I just
you're like, oh no, I ignorantly destroyed the vase. Now I'm a vandal. We see kids tearing pages out of library books, shattering mirrors, and then slashing open paintings. The kids all watch and applaud the chaos. And they're also learning the wrong lesson from this film. We'll see later.
Maybe you're mad at the school, but busting something doesn't help. I just think it's childish.
At Carl's home the next day, he learns from his father that the men coming to town have their sights on the land opposite the rec center, the space which was initially designated for the theater and roller rink, which will now be an industrial park. Mr. Willat points out that people need a reason to move to town that's better than a bowling alley or something like that. And this kind of points back to the opening crawl, which the point is they're only installing things that adults and parents use and nothing for the kids to use.
Yeah.
And so if you don't think these things are important, then the kids have nowhere to go and they have nothing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the whole concept of like, is like, well, the kids have the school. There you go.
It's like, oh, great. We'll just learn at night at the school. That night, we see a party happening in the yard around the rec center. Claude checks with a kid named Tip, buys some hash, and Tip offers acid as well, but Claude turns it down after today's experience. Just as Carl and Richie arrive together, he's telling the story about the bike shop again, but this time he says,
No, they asked my mother to sign this thing saying it was incorrigible or whatever.
Incorrigible.
Yeah, whatever.
So Carl's inevitable correction is actually necessary. Carl sits down between brothers Claude and Johnny. Claude realizes Carl is looking for Cory, his crush, and can't find her here. Richie tells the guys about a house party he just got the deets for, and they head straight there. I know deets is like a 90s thing. But
yeah.
Oh well. He locates Cory fairly quickly at that party in a crowded basement section, and she's lying on a couch being made out with by Mark, the freeway shooter. And Carl thanks the guy for getting him arrested. He also confirms that he didn't name any names for the police. When Mark leaves the room, Cory notices Carl staring and asks what his problem is.
You could do a lot better.
Carl has soured on the party and gives Cory one last glare from the stairs on his way out. Just as he's crossing the front yard, the police skid into the driveway to deliver a 15-minute warning on curfew. The kids all scatter into the surrounding neighborhoods.
I just think it's hilarious that the cops are showing up, not to bust up the party, but to be like, it's time to go home, guys.
Yeah. Well, they did this when I was in high school. They would pull up to parties and just be like, hey, guys, we know what's happening here. It's not supposed to be happening here. Everybody go home. But then the worst thing is that they would follow people slowly down the street to their cars, and then as soon as someone got in a car, they'd be like, you're driving drunk, so now we're going to take you in for a DUI. Like, they were forcing people to get in their cars when they would have otherwise slept at this party. And Mark and his denim jacket friend catch up with Carl in a local playground. As these two kids are beating up Carl, we hear a purely instrumental soundtrack. So there's none of the fight being heard, but it's coming across in the emotion of the music, and I actually really like the score here.
So yeah, the whole purpose of them beating up Carl was like, you didn't tell the cops who we were, and we just want to make sure that you don't tell the cops who we are.
Yeah. This is how we repay people for protecting us.
It's like they tell you not to tell the cops their names, but they speed you up anyway.
Just doesn't seem fair to me. Bloodied and bruised, Carl wanders home alone and finds his parents seated in the living room with Jerry Cole, the HOA president, spearheading the luring of investors to New Granada. Carl's parents notice the cuts and bruises on his face, but he claims not to know who did it.
Who did this
Don't
to
touch
you?
it. Wait,
I want to know who did this
I
to
don't
you.
know who did it. It was dark. I didn't
Carl,
see
you
him.
tell me who.
okay?
Freddie.
Fred.
Jerry tells Mr. Willat not to worry about it because worrying about your children is women's work. Jerry is concerned about the criminal element represented by the kids in the town and suggests shutting down the rec center while the investors are looking at the lot across the street. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, I get that it's right next to where you're going to be showing these people the land, but it doesn't make any sense to... It's like, hey, we're going to have some investors in there, but there's a beehive across the street. That seems pretty dangerous. We better go hit it with a bat right before they get here.
But like right before.
Yeah, like seconds before.
Why would you not do this? Like, don't even open it for the day.
Confirm that it's closed for hours before these people show up. Mom checks on Carl and gives him $5 from pocket change to replace the $4 he says the bullies took. Insanely, she follows up her visit by asking Carl to go easy on her husband, since this business with the investors has put him under so much pressure lately, and Carl agrees to it. He's like, yeah, you're right. He's having a tough time. I need to be the bigger man and be kind to my father. The next day, we see a Texas International plane touchdown and investors, represented by Lane Smith as Mr. Sloan, en route to the available parcel of land. Mr. Willat is not a great salesman, and so only digs a hole for himself by mentioning a recent slump in his business, which he blames on some sort of vague hiatus, and they pretend to know what he's talking about. It's just like, oh, there's a thing we're calling a hiatus, and that's why I'm not selling cars lately.
I feel like that's the same excuse they used in the Big Short.
Yeah.
When they're down in Florida checking out with a realtor, and they're like, we're just in a bit of a slump.
Yeah, but it's also like, this is a city that you built in the middle of nowhere, and anyone who needed a car already has one. If you're not connected to like a major city, then yeah, that's why you're not selling any cars, is because everybody here has a car already.
Yeah, but that's also like a tactic. Like you go out to like in the middle of nowhere because the price.
Like, you have to buy my car.
Well, no, the prices are usually lower.
Yeah.
Even though you still have to pay the tax for where you live.
But even in the early 80s, Cadillac is a luxury brand. It seems like the wrong car to be selling to these people.
I drive luxury.
I drive cars that shift themselves. At the rec center the next day, the kids take turns poking fun at Carl's busted face, except his friends, who ask if he's all right and leave it at that. I actually appreciated that his friends are being friends about it. They're like, oh, what happened? Are you okay? Is everything all right? And then they do a little bit of poking fun, like, oh, I didn't know you were into that stuff. And he's like, believe me, I didn't volunteer for this. Outside, we see Doberman and his partner in a parked squad car looking shocked that the rec center is open despite strict instructions. Rec Center counselor Julia is walking out the door, and Doberman greets her in the yard to remind her they were asked to close the rec center today, and she reminds them they have no authority to do that.
The rec stays open. It's the only place these kids have to go, and that's a little more important.
Heard there was a little hash being sold here last night. No chance any of that sort of thing would happen here, is there?
No chance.
Of course, she denies the charges, and Doberman storms warrantless into the building, straight to Claude, who he frisks immediately despite the boy's rights. When he locates the hash Claude bought the night before, he radios for assistance, and Richie sneaks out the back door. Carl is offended by what he sees happening and invites Doberman to search him for drugs. Obviously, he doesn't have any, or he wouldn't have allowed it, but by the time Doberman drags Claude outside, he finds Richie standing on his squad car.
White! Off that car!
Richie ignores the demand, and when Doberman's partner tries to chase the boy away, he trips and falls in the dirt. The officer, not Richie. Right on cue, the investors from Texas are being driven to the site of their upcoming land deal and see children sparring with local police and jumping around on the squad car. Carl's dad tries to make some kind of excuse for what they see.
What's going on over there?
Oh, looks like the kids must be having some kind of a fun over there. It's a fun day. So you see, Sergeant Doberman, that's our local police officer. He's involved in youth work.
We see them drive past the completed sign from before, which now reads, "The Ideal Business Environment." Eventually, Doberman shoves Claude into the back seat, but by now, kids are climbing all over the car when he skids away. This seems really dangerous. I'm sure it wasn't on set, but they make it look like he was being really careless and could have run over some of these kids. Richie and Carl walk to a nearby convenience store after the encounter with Doberman. They talk about a classmate who got a car, but Richie isn't impressed because he can only drive it with his dad in the passenger seat.
Big deal. Who cares, man?
It's still his car.
Must have a great time on dates with his father-in-law.
Reaching into his pocket for cash, Richie finds a string of fireworks and hands them to Carl.
Happy 4th of July, man.
What am I gonna do with firecrackers, man?
Give them to Claude. Let him smoke them.
Riding their bikes later, they notice Carl's crush, Cory, and her friend Abby coming out of a home that doesn't belong to either of them. A banner labeling the neighborhood says Strawberry Fields, but someone has added Never with spray paint to parody the Beatles song. Turns out they just sort of broke into the place to steal stuff, and Richie snatches a bag away from them. Inside, he finds a revolver. Carl reminds Richie that he knows a guy who pays cash for guns, and the girls are excited to possibly make a buck off it. Carl invites the girls to a condo he shares with Richie, by which he means an abandoned housing development.
Hey, this is neat. I don't think they're gonna finish it, though. I haven't seen anybody around here in a long time. My father says they're out of money. Yeah, who'd want to live here anyway?
Carl works up the courage to ask Cory out, but she says she doesn't go out. She just hangs out with friends.
I just mean I like you. I like you too. You have pretty eyelashes.
Cory stands to dance to the radio music, swinging the stolen gun around. She waves it carelessly into camera and accidentally pulls the trigger. In a reverse angle, we see Carl hitting the ground hard, and everyone rushes to check on him.
You lied?
Turns out he was just pranking them.
But she actually shot though, right?
She did, but she didn't hit him. But he decided to pretend like she did.
But he managed to time it so that he fell down.
I mean, I would probably do the same motion if someone shot a gun toward me.
Oh, God.
As a prank. Later, we see them exit the condo, and Cory apologizes for almost killing Carl before they part ways. Their silhouettes divide and disappear into opposite ends of the horizon. From the end of the block, Carl watches his father and Jerry speaking with the visiting investors. He hides from their car as they leave. A sign planted in the front yard of the home the investors are staying in reads, "Another New Granada model home." Sometime later, we see the investors climbing back into their car, but just as they start it up, explosions erupt from under the hood. When they open it, we learn Carl has planted his fireworks in the engine to sabotage his father's deal.
Would an engine really get hot enough fast enough to light all those firecrackers?
I mean, they're strung together with little bits of paper that could easily catch fire pretty quick. I think so. It could light the fuse. We cut right to Jerry desperately pleading with the men to hear him out, but their minds are made up and they will not be investing in this community.
Yeah. They also actually impart some wisdom.
Right, yeah.
About this, you brought your kids out here and you're not providing anything for them. It's like we kind of learned that they didn't have any intention of doing anything here anyway, but it's like he's making a point.
Yeah. I think they literally came out here just to get wined and dined by these people from out of town. And they got a nice place to stay for the weekend, but their car got totaled, so they're like, fuck you guys.
It's not even their car.
Yeah, it's from the dealership.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you something, Mr. Cole. You got a lot more than juvenile trouble. Seems to me like you all were in such a hopped-up hurry to get out of the city that you turn your kids into exactly what you're trying to get away from. Let's go. That was very well put, Roy. I thought so.
Claude phones Carl to report that his arrest was uneventful, and they were mostly just scaring him to make a point. He invites Carl to play basketball, but he already has plans with Cory, and Claude reminds him that she's a waste of time.
This is when Claude is at home.
Right.
And he's watching some weird TV program or just
It's just like these pixelated diamonds that are kind of like shimmering and shifting.
Yeah, and he's like just staring at it.
So this was a thing that they had on the Atari.
Oh.
It was called Atari Video Music, and it was like a music visualizer. So you would put your music on, and the shapes would change based on what you were listening to. Kind of like they used to have on early MP3 players.
No,
Yeah.
I remember visualize.
I didn't realize they had them in the 70s.
But it would be listening to the music?
Somehow it interacted with the music in such a way that the pattern was affected by the speed or the rhythm of the music.
Interesting.
Yeah. I couldn't remember where that was, but I had that note, so I had to scroll to it real quick. I was
Yeah,
like,
well,
I have this information. Where is it?
Well, because we see it a couple of times, and I
Yeah.
was like, what is he watching?
Yeah, it's very weird. Later, we see Jerry informing Carl's dad that the kids fucked up the land deal. Carl sneaks out in the middle of their conversation to avoid his father's wrath. We cut to Carl and Cora on a walking date in a field somewhere. We see them discussing their plans for the future, and then we cut away to Richie, Claude, Johnny, and Abby taking turns shooting at a can on a fence post. Nobody can hit it until Carl takes over and knocks it down with their last bullet. They discuss Claude's recent arrest, and he mentions how he had just recently bought hash from one of their friends, Tip. One of them suggests that Tip was arrested outside the rec center that night and might have handed off Claude's name for a lighter sentence or to be released, which would explain why he went straight to Claude immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also weird that Doberman knows who Claude is from this crew.
Well, I just think
he just knows everybody.
Yeah, but also it's kind of telling that the character's name is Tip.
Right.
Like
and
he's calling in tips.
Yeah.
Is it telling or is it on the nose screen right?
Some of the names are a little too on the nose. I think Doberman and Tip, for instance, are too much. Unfortunately for Tip, they know where he lives and hop his patio fence to give him a stern talking to. Abby and Cory start digging around in Tip's kitchen for something to eat. The boys demand Tip explain himself, and he admits to giving Doberman Claude's name. Richie points the gun in Tip's face, and Johnny lights a firecracker to impersonate the sound of gunfire.
I had to. I got busted last month. I never had a chance.
Kid who tells on another kid is a dead kid.
Jesus Christ, for God's sake, man, put the gun away. Don't do...
Goodbye, North.
The sound draws the attention of Tip's mother, who's playing tennis in a nearby court and suddenly thinks her son has been shot. The kids toss Tip over the balcony into a small pond, and Tip cries for help since he can't swim. It's funny, multiple times we'll see this. There are the husbands who are working in this very small town, which only has places to work. That's it, stores and places to work. And the women that are being stay-at-home moms are all playing at these tennis courts, and that's all they're doing. But it's like they found space for recreation for the adults in the form of these tennis courts, but the kids get this 1/2 tube of metal to just stand under, and that's where the kids have to go all day, and sometimes they're not even allowed to go there. Sometime later, we see all the kids walking together and laughing about Tip's pathetic cries for help. I wonder if this kid drowned. We'll see them. When everyone splits up for the night, Cory chases down Carl and gives him a kiss before leaving. Carl comes home to his father, ranting to his mother about Jerry Cole being incompetent, and he suspects the investors never had any real intention of investing here anyway, if a few kids getting rowdy was enough to drive them completely out of town. When Dad sees Carl, he sits him down for an additional lecture about the scene they made today outside the rec center, and Carl accuses his father of conspiring with Jerry to shut the place down for the day.
Do you also think that I put that ounce of hash in Claude Zachary's pocket, do you? You think that too?
Wasn't an ounce, Dad.
How in the hell do you know so much about it?
Did I get busted?
Oh, shit!
After a bit more back and forth, Carl's parents forbid him from continuing to spend time with Richie White. They also inform him that Counselor Julia at the rec center has been relieved of her duty there, and the place will be shut down until they can find a suitable replacement, which is clearly code for until we can find investors to turn that lot into another business park. Carl calls his father crazy and rises to return to his room, but on the way, Dad yanks him by his arm and smacks him hard across the face. Carl gets away and listens to his parents scream at each other from his room. We cut to the school the next day, and a science teacher struggles to get his students to listen or care about the lesson. Carl is singled out to cross the room and identify specific plants from an area he calls the botany box, and after Carl proves he's been paying attention, we notice that Carl is actually overhearing a conversation outside the classroom between Tip's mother and someone in the office. The mother says Tip mentioned someone named Claude, and the mother is asked what other names Tip mentioned, so we cut immediately to the end of class. Carl rushes out of the science lab to collect Richie, and together they run out to the bike racks, but I'm not sure what's happening here. They lean down like they're unlocking the bikes, but then they leave without them because they see a police car rolling into the lot.
I think that it's taking too long to undo the locks, and they see the cop car. It's like
he's getting too close.
Yeah, because they hadn't been spotted yet.
Right.
But by the time they get the chains out and get on their bikes and start pedaling.
And they're sure that if Tip handed over Claude's name, that their names would be next or in the same package. They make it back to Richie's home, where Richie steals the keys to his mother's truck. I feel like he should have just asked and said it was an emergency. His mom seemed pretty cool. But his logic, though, is that it's not even her car because she just got it, and so most of it is in the bank's name.
Yeah, it's not even paid for. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to drive it to the bank and ask them if I can borrow it. His plan for now is to drive to Sweetwater, a nearby town, and sell the gun, and then live off the cash value of an old gun forever. I don't know what their plan is.
We're running away?
Aw. Bye-bye, new granola.
Bye.
Richie promises his mom won't tell the cops about the stolen car. They pop in one of Richie's mom's Jimi Hendrix 8-tracks. Richie points Carl to a pile of joints in his mother's ashtray, the secret stash. They're barely a few miles down the road when they see Doberman in their rear view. Not only won't Richie pull over, he refuses to ditch the weed or the gun in the car, and trying to take the vehicle off-road, he rolls it in the dirt. The boys split up to make a run for it, and Doberman fires a warning shot in the air. Richie levels the stolen gun at the cop, and Doberman shoots the boy, knocking him down. Doberman stands in shock at what he's done, and Carl speeds away to avoid being shot next. The music gets very creepy and disorienting. It reminds me of Gerald Busby's score for Altman's Three Women. Discordant and nightmarish. It's the same as from that fight scene earlier, where it's just super creepy, otherworldly. That night, we cut to Claude and Johnny's place, and he's watching the same Atari Diamond patterns on the TV when the phone rings again. Even though he doesn't speak, he answers the phone, and Carl figures it out surprisingly quickly.
Johnny, is that you? And Johnny just nods into the phone.
That's exactly what happened. Johnny, is that you? Johnny uselessly nods at the other end of the phone. Carl arranges a signal system for Johnny to answer his yes or no questions.
Do 1 tap for yes, 2 for no. Did you hear anything about Richie? What happened? He's not dead, is he?
Yes, he's not dead?
Yes, correct.
No, he's not dead. What? Hold on.
Tap, he's tap, dead. He's dead.
I would have killed for tap.
After Carl hangs up with Johnny, we see him start to make a second phone call, and then we see Cory approaching Richie and Carl's so-called condo with a sleeping bag under her arm. She meant to come earlier, but she had to wait until her dad was asleep. She tells Carl how crazy it feels that they found the gun and things went off the rails so fast. Carl tells her that he begged Richie to ditch the weapon, but he wouldn't do it. He admits that once things cool down, he'll probably just go home to his parents. Cory seems prepared to spend the night here with Carl, and speaking of her own future, she has plans to become a gypsy of the road, meaning a female truck driver, after seeing one profiled in the newspaper.
She's only 95 pounds. She's already driven over 100,000 miles.
It's such a weird comment to make.
Yeah. She should be much heavier if she's driving that much.
It's all the speed.
Oh. Wait. Speed. Oh, shit, this is acid.
I'm driving into Harana's splash painting.
Oh, God. That's terrifying. They climb into the sleeping bag together, and Carl tells her how beautiful she is. They kiss for a moment, and we dissolve to morning. Cory is watching the sunrise and tells Carl she has to get home before her dad wakes up and finds her gone. She asks Carl his plan for the day, and he says he's going to sneak into his house to take money from his parents to live off for a bit. She gifts him her sleeping bag until he can get things sorted. They kiss again, and she marches out over the hill toward the rising sun. I really like this shot, too. Mm-hmm. She's like walking directly into this like beautiful golden horizon. In class, we see an instructor handing out flyers for an emergency meeting tonight in the school cafetorium to discuss the recent events of the town.
I have that in quotes with a question.
Cafetorium?
Cafetorium? I guess because it's the auditorium and the cafeteria.
Yeah. That was what Addie said.
Yeah.
As soon as that part, we were like, what the hell's a cafetorium? And she's like, maybe it's a cafeteria and an auditorium. And it's like, it definitely is. But I would call that the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Or an auditorium.
Yeah, but the teacher's also like, we're having a special meeting to discuss
problems.
Yeah, you people. And it's like, also, if you know where anyone is, you have to tell me.
Right.
It's like, you just said that we're bad, and now you're asking to be our friend.
We're going to talk about how evil you guys are. Where's Carl? Out in a field, we see the gunman kid, Mark, doing stunts on his motorcycle, and when he ramps off the ground, Carl hits him in the chest with his own air gun. The kid flips over the handlebars and lands hard on his back, but when he sees it was Carl who shot him, he declares a truce. Over the course of the scene, it seems like Mark doesn't really have a family to rely on at all, and he lives here in this field in a tent. Mark assures Carl that he wouldn't be able to survive on his own, but Carl isn't interested in Mark's advice.
Believe me, I know. You don't know.
All you've ever done is gone around shooting things with this stupid air rifle.
Hey, don't make me mad, and then we'll have to start this stupid thing all over again.
Carl gives him the gun back, and it seems they've made peace with each other. We cut back to Carl's home, where a phone rings. It's Dad calling to check if Carl's come home yet. While his mother speaks with his father, we see outside that Carl is climbing a balcony into his second-story bedroom window to collect things. Then he sneaks around the house into his parents' room, where a television commercial for his dad's dealership is playing on the TV. Carl picks up the phone in his parents' room to intercept the call.
Bet you wish I got shot too, huh?
Carl?
Carl! Stay right. Sandy, you keep him there.
He's at the dealership. He must be on one of the other phones at the dealership.
Mom pleads with Carl through the locked bedroom door to let her in, but we see him sneaking out the window. That night, as parents and police are convening at the school for tonight's emergency meeting, their children are all breaking curfew to convene outside the rec center. We also see the cops arrive together, and one of them's like, dude, put your gun in the trunk.
Yeah,
we can't bring your gun in here for this.
Why would you even consider having your gun on your holster walking in?
I would rather it was someone telling Doberman not to bring the gun in, because I want to make him just a complete, irredeemable monster, but it's a different cop that's trying to bring a gun in, and Doberman's the one who's like, what the fuck are you doing? Put that in the trunk. Back in the school meeting, a speaker addresses the parents, and behind her we see 4 massively blown up black and white photographs, which I can only assume are meant to encapsulate a general vibe of Americana. We see Neil Armstrong on the moon, JFK Jr. saluting his father's funeral procession, and Joe DiMaggio hitting a home run, and then randomly 2 anonymous women swinging on a tire swing, somehow on equal footing with these other historic photographs. By the way, can you guys think of a single historical figure who connects the other 3 historical figures?
Joe DiMaggio, John F. Kennedy Jr., and
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong?
It's pretty obvious if you start from one of the 3 characters in particular.
Buzz Aldrin?
No.
Marilyn Monroe?
Michael Collins?
No, JFK Jr. Who would he be connected to famously? How many people do you know for a fact that JFK Jr. spoke to in his life?
JFK.
There you go. JFK.
Oh.
Because he sent Neil to the moon because he said, we're going to go to the moon, guys. And he was like, okay, I'll go to the moon, sir. And then he started dating Joe DiMaggio's ex-wife, Marilyn Monroe. The children are all breaking curfew to convene outside the rec center. Carl has an arm over Cory's shoulder when Mark arrives and salutes him. So he's not mad that the girl he was making out with is now with this guy.
Well, and from what we understand, that it seems that Cory just guy jumps anyway.
Yeah, but I was just worried that this could kick everything off again,
nah.
and it turns out it didn't. He's putting bros before hoes.
Yeah, Mark ends up being pretty cool for a little bit, and then less cool a bit later on.
But also, he did start this whole fucking thing by shooting through the windshield of a police car from a freeway overpass. Back at the rec center, Claude arrives and joins the team. Everyone's excited to see the kids joining forces, like a mumbly stoner version of the Avengers. That's my secret, Cap. I'm always baked as fuck. Mark points out that all the people these kids have a beef with are currently sitting in the same room, and they start getting some fun ideas. Back at the school, Jerry Cole takes the stage and opens with a lecture for the people who didn't bother coming tonight. Why don't you save this for them? Don't tell this to the people who did come.
Yeah.
The kids all move in a crowd toward the school and start brainstorming.
Man, 1 stick of dynamite would do it.
The kids run up in small packs and press their faces against the windows and the doors to look in on the listening parents. Carl runs across the roof of the building and opens a skylight to jump down inside.
Yeah, because I think the outer doors are locked.
Right. While the kids' plan takes shape, Jerry's speech veers further and further off topic, mentioning other towns with similar problems, but then talking about how building values are affected by this phenomenon. Insanely, Officer Doberman, who shot 14-year-old Richie dead yesterday, is invited to speak to this crowd. And though he claims not to have wanted to shoot anybody, he is nowhere near remorseful.
I did not come here to apologize. I am sorry. Sorry that he was carrying a handgun. Sorry that he was on drugs.
We cut back to the kids, chaining master locks around every available exit to trap parents in the building. Juliet, the counselor from the rec center, stands to ask Doberman if the child he shot was technically unarmed. But it's not really a fair question, since Richie was blatantly pointing a real gun at the police officer.
Well, she asked if it was loaded.
Sergeant, is it true that Richie White's gun wasn't loaded?
Well, when somebody points a gun at you, see...
Was the gun loaded or wasn't it?
Well, how the hell was I supposed to know? I don't even think he knew. That kid was violent, wild. You never knew what he was going to do next. All he did was hang around that rec center.
Jerry Cole can see the meeting flying off the rails very quickly and tries to take the podium back from the flustered officer. Jerry tries to coax the conversation back to the financial ramifications of these events, a completely different but equally offensive point.
You can have the finest housing in the world, and we do, but nobody's going to pay $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 to live in a decorator-colored slum.
Jerry, can I ask you a question? What the hell are you talking about?
What do you mean, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the problem.
Yeah, but which problem? The problem with the kids or the problem with resale values on properties?
This is why, if you want someone to speak to the public about family values and useful solutions, you should probably appoint a speaker with children, and not someone whose only connection to the city is how much he can sell his house for. Carl's dad, Mr. Willat, points out that closing the rec center and instituting curfews clearly isn't going to make these kids any more obedient, and Jerry tries to single out Mr. Willat's parenting skills in particular.
Your son and some of his friends are part of this.
God damn it, Jerry, my son and his friends are part of this goddamn town!
Doberman is basically sharing the podium with Jerry, and he's glaring at Carl's dad as if just waiting for permission to go kill the man. Mr. Willat turns his ire on fellow parents and accuses them all of neglecting their children, but one man in the audience, the school's science teacher, takes offense at the accusation that no one is listening to these kids, to point out that he and his fellow instructors are probably the only people who do.
I spend more time with your kids than you people do. You think those kids are interested in learning? You ought to come in and see what goes on in a classroom. But no, when we have open school week, nobody comes. And that includes you, Mr. Willat.
Willat doesn't dispute the accusation, but won't let these crowds blame the underparented children for their actions. Across the cafetorium, Officer Doberman sees two kids standing outside flipping him off through a window in the door. An adult in this situation would not react, but Doberman has no self-control or common sense and charges full speed off stage toward the door. When he reaches it, he finds it locked, and outside, he can see that kids are starting bonfires in the parking lot. He races panicked around the cafetorium to verify that every potential exit is locked tight.
Well, also it's saying everything's fine,
right?
Everything's under control.
He struggles unconvincingly to assure the parents that everything is okay.
People got me acting crazy. Now relax. It's your kids out there. They got us surrounded. We can handle it.
In the parking lot, fires roar and cars are destroyed. Throughout the campus, every department of the school is being thoroughly demolished. The kids pry open the trunks of parked cars and find guns to fire into the air. A couple girls hop on the school's PA system to troll the parents.
God damn it, be quiet!
Apparently that was all improvised by these kids. Yeah. They got to how would you troll parents on a PA system?
Creepy though. They
yeah, it's great.
The creepy voices and
that's the sexy bitch girl doing that. Go to hell. I'm not calling her a sexy bitch. She called herself one. It's okay for me to say it.
I think you're only allowed to use that term if you are one.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm good. In a few of the shots of the kids wreaking havoc outside, we can see someone who looks suspiciously like the ghost of Richie, and it turns out that Matt Dillon was invited back for just this sequence because he didn't want to miss out on the fun of shooting this scene.
That's
like,
hilarious.
Come on back. You'll look like another kid from the 70s. That's fine.
Yeah. But I think...
Just put on a full shirt.
Yeah, exactly. We're just going to add one more inch to this and you're good.
But I think it would be more interesting to just... have him be there.
In here? Like the spirit of him is playing along with this?
But like no one acknowledges him being there. But.
And he runs through a kid. How would they do that in 1979? Doberman continues to assure everyone that he's got it all taken care of. Even as the flames slowly approach the building, they're all locked inside.
Everybody, bear with me. The situation's under control. Mr. Cole, bear with me. Everything is under control. I can assure you everything is under control.
Not ours, but control nonetheless. Outside, Carl notices a kid has stolen Richie's bike and suddenly feels this is a step too far. Like, hold on now.
Yeah.
We're not stealing the bikes of dead kids, are we? It's like, yeah, feel free to set this whole line of cars on fire, though. That'd be funny, though, if back inside the cafetorium that Carl's dad is like, oh, this is great. He did this for me. We're going to sell so many cars in the next month.
Everyone needs a car now.
I love you, son. Carl runs after the bike thief, and Cory tries to follow him when suddenly Mark rides by on his own bike, maniacally firing a sawed-off shotgun into the engine of a parked car right next to her as she dives for cover. Counselor Julia smokes a cigarette near one of the locked gates and sees Johnny roller skating by. She asks if he can bring her a phone, and he dutifully delivers one so she can call more law enforcement to bring an end to this chaos.
Yeah, the phone doesn't reach, so he just hands her the receiver, and he's like, would you press 0 for me?
It actually seems a little out of character for her to call the police on these kids, because I would fully suspect some of them to get shot, but I guess somebody had to do it, and she's the only person who could probably coax a phone out of these kids. A young kid wearing face paint offers Carl tapes he stole from a car in the lot, but Carl seems ready to call everything off. Claude finds Cory sitting on the ground with bloody scratches all over her face. It seems like Carl has basically just abandoned her here, and Claude, wearing a vest of stolen headphones, steps up to do what Carl should be doing.
Have you seen Carl? Not since he's with you.
God, I wish I could find him. I just want to go home.
Come on, I'll take you home.
I love this arc for his character that the whole time he's been saying, like, that Cory girl's no good, and now he sees her in need, and he's like, I'm going to take care of you. Everything's going to be okay. We cut back to Carl, and now he's looking for Cory, but before he can locate her, a pair of police cars roll into the lot with their sirens blaring. They unlock the cafetorium and let everybody out. Jerry tries to talk Doberman out of retaliating personally against these kids, but the man won't hear it and runs straight for his squad car. Within seconds, he catches up with Carl, running down the middle of the street like a fucking amateur. Later, he drives with Carl in his backseat, and as they're passing the rec center, he sees the same 2 kids who shot at his car from the overpass, and when his engine erupts in sparks, Doberman swerves the car off the road, clipping a propane tank in the rec center front yard, and then plowing through the face of the structure. Carl realizes quickly that Doberman is either out cold or dead, and manages to steal the man's keys and escape from the back seat seconds before the entire building goes up in flames with a massive explosion.
Which shouldn't have been possible. He should have.
You can't use keys on the inside of a car door.
Well, that and squad cars generally, you can't open the car door.
Yeah, you have to open it from
anyway.
the outside, yeah. Maybe if he jumped into the front seat and gotten out of the passenger side. As we watch the rec center smolder, the final song on the soundtrack starts up, Ooh, Child, by the 5 Stair Steps. Apparently this was supposed to be Baba O'Reilly. I don't know if it was a financial situation that they had to switch, but this works good for the last song. We dissolve to the morning where Carl and friends are marched in cuffs from a police station to a waiting prison bus, symbolically converted from a school bus, and the kids are trucked off to wherever they'll be serving their sentences.
Yeah, Doberman had mentioned that you would be sent upstate for a few weeks.
Yeah. But that was before they killed Doberman. So this might be significantly worse now.
I mean, I would argue that
he killed himself.
Yeah. But
well, a kid shot his car with a shotgun.
Yeah, but that wasn't Carl.
Right, but that kid's in this bus.
Yeah.
So he's not being charged with the murder of the police officer. They're just like,
okay.
Go pick up trash on the side of the freeway.
Well, yeah, but the only witness to that was was Carl. But like everyone's, like even Cory's friend is in there.
Right, yeah, everybody's in there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like you can't just send all of these kids to prison.
Right.
But they're not all
nope,
in there.
not all of them.
Because apparently some of them left early enough to get away with it.
Cory, Claude, and Johnny, having escaped prosecution by taking Cory home early, wave goodbye to their friends from an overpass as the bus goes by. Claude and Cory will no doubt have a dozen children by the time Carl is released from prison. In a few weeks' time. What? Credits roll over the interior of the prison bus rolling along the freeway. The end. I really like this movie.
Yeah, no, this was a very big surprise. I'd never seen this before. I thought it was going to be kind of like your stereotypical, because the kids are all very intense caricatures of kids.
Right. But I also feel like they're very realistic compared to other contemporary portrayals of kids from the late 70s and early 80s. And I think that's something, the last time we saw it was in My Bodyguard, where we had kids that felt like kids and who were also being played by kids, because Matt Dillon is actually like high school aged acting in this film. But I think, and also Matt Dillon was in that, right? He was in both of these movies. Yeah. So he is appearing again in one of these films where, and Little Darlings, like his first 3 movies are all movies where he's playing a very realistic version of a teenager, pretty close to his own personality from what I understand at the time. In these movies that are intentionally populating the cast with like, you seem like a teenager, act like your life, and we'll just shoot it and that'll be the movie. And I feel like this one really gets it right in ways that, and I know people love My Bodyguard, but I think there's problems with that movie where it gets a little silly with the whole bodyguard story part of it. Like you have the serious stuff where the kid like accidentally killed his brother or his brother killed himself using his gun. And then there's like the joke thing where it's like, I'm going to hire a big kid to beat up the bully that's beating me up. And there's like a little bit of cartoon logic. But the rest of it felt very real. This one feels fully real the whole way through.
Yeah, I think having children that actually look like children
makes such a difference.
Because I think it's a very different story if all these people are populated by, the 20-somethings or early 30s that they do nowadays for high school films.
or even like the Warriors.
Yeah.
And also you need them to have teen skin. Like I think that's important to telling these stories is like these kids need to be greasy. They need to have bumps in every shot. Like you can't just put a bunch of like makeup models in these movies. You need to find kids that feel like they were a part of this movement.
Yeah.
And then cast them to basically play themselves. And it's happened. I worked on a film called American Honey, and a lot of those kids were essentially playing themselves, and it really does service the performances and the whole story for them to feel very genuine in the way that they act. And all these people, like Matt Dillon was literally, because this is technically his first film, so we've covered him before, but he shot this first, and then it sat on a shelf for a while. But he was hired because he found out that he could skip school if he auditioned. and they were like, we love that about you, and let's explore that. And there were other people that were very close to getting this role that had more experience, but because they liked his attitude and the way he carries himself throughout the story. And I feel like it's still a little shaky here, where he really locks it down in Little Darlings and My Bodyguard. But I love that they were like, we're just going to find the person that we wrote and then cast him as this character.
Well, and I feel a lot of the scenes were just like, let them figure out what they're going to say a little bit. Like give them some idea of what you should be doing or saying, but whatever feels right for you to say.
Right. And the inside the rec center, outside the rec center at night for the parties, the house party, all of that feels like genuine, like children environment. Like it felt like real parties that I've wandered through and been like, I'm not cool enough to be here. I'm going to go home and play video games.
Addie was very good. She watched the whole thing with me. She was very grateful that she didn't grow up in this time period, she said.
Well, if you ever show her Dazed and Confused, I mean, because that was the first movie I thought of.
Right, yeah. And he has said that he was directly inspired by this film when he was putting that together.
But Dazed and Confused is definitely more of a slice of life. There's no real overarching plot.
Right. And it's also a little bit more polished and a little bit more of like a fantasy 70s weekend situation with all these like incredibly attractive people who are still like acting constantly, all of them.
Yeah.
That cast is loaded with people.
Exactly.
And they weren't all huge at the time. He just really lucked out and did a good job with it. But
the buildup of this movie of just like the pressure, you just feel everything mounting until this just release that happens.
Now, you had mentioned, Jess, that when we watched the trailer before, that so much of the trailer takes place during this riot that you expected that to be like the inciting incident.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I had actually forgotten that I had seen the trailer
this was
for
that
this
movie
until we got to that thing, and I was like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. Oh yeah, we watched the trailer.
Right.
This was all that was in the trailer. Why wasn't like... I thought that this was what started it, and then we were going to have like a whole standoff situation.
I thought it was going to be like a multi-day hostage situation, and the National Guard was going to come
taps
in.
or
something like that. But it's like almost immediately over because it's so far out of hand that Carl's like, okay, this was a bad idea. Like I should not be governing these people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like it. I really like all the performances. I really feel like for a $3 million movie, it looks so much more expensive than that because they cast almost entirely unknowns, and they spent all their money very efficiently on these explosions and things like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're using existing structures,
Yeah.
so a real school, real houses, real housing developments, and everything. And I think it goes a long way when you know what you're doing. And it also, like, I don't see any, like, because they're real locations, I don't see the failures of a cheap production because there's nothing that needed to be faked because so it feels so genuine that it just really works the whole way through, and the soundtrack is great, and like I said, I love the score, so there's not a lot to be upset about here for me.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, but at the same time, I do feel like that it is kind of that slice of life movie thing that I don't like about it,
and that it's a slow burn on the way to the
super slow,
the chaos.
And it also. And I know it's supposed to, but it makes me feel so uncomfortable so much of the time.
Yeah.
especially like all the stuff with
the
them
guns,
hanging out with the guns and playing with them all the time. Just like
just pretending they're toys.
Like when is this going to come back and hurt us here?
Because even the air rifle, like we saw a kid get hit with it like in the air, but he's wearing motorcycle gear.
Yeah.
And he does like a roll off of it. But it's like even the air rifle by itself could kill someone, especially if you're shooting out windshields on a freeway.
Well, yeah, like if you're putting 22 rounds.
But even if it were just the BB and the person swerved the wrong way and crashed and killed themselves, like they're acting like these are toys and they're very serious things. And then the real gun obviously is even more serious. And then beyond that, they're getting these high-powered handguns and shotguns by the end of the movie. And it's like they just keep expanding the scope of their weaponry and they never treat it with any sort of like seriousness. Because it's clear that Mark thinks it's funny when he's blowing up these cars with a shotgun at the end. And then one handgun is like strong enough to set 2 cars on fire.
Yeah, I mean, he shoots right for the gas tank.
Yeah.
And of course, was it Jerry Cole?
Yeah.
His car is like, they make a big deal about his car. Like, it's like, oh, I'll never get rid of this car.
And then he sees it fully engulfed in flames in the parking lot. So he gets what he had coming to him. And also he probably loses his whole investment in this town because it's going to be all over the news.
Mm-hmm.
But big thumbs up for me on this one.
Oh, yeah. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up.
What are we thinking Letterboxd on this one?
I think I have it sort of... Where do I have it?
Where am I?
I have it at 12 out of 26, so close to the middle here. It's below The Beast Within and above Vice Squad.
Okay.
I have it at number 4, which puts it below A Stranger's Watching and above Quest for Fire.
I have it in 7th place, which is just under Quest for Fire and just above The Border out of 26. Our director here was Jonathan Kaplan. Before this, he directs Truck Turner, White Line Fever, and after this, he directs Project X, Broke Down Palace, and since 2000, mostly television, ER, Without a Trace, Brothers and Sisters, and Law and Order SVU. Writing credit here for Charles S. Haas. This was his first screenwriting credit. He's back this season with uncredited work on Tron and later credited work on Tex. So in 82, another screen credit for Tex, which also stars Matt Dillon. So, but obviously this is technically 3 years later.
Are you saying Tex with a CH or
Tex?
Tex with TEX? Okay.
Later, he has credits on Gremlins 2 and Matinee, so he must have connected with Joe Dante at some point. The other writing credit is for Tim Hunter, who also wrote and directed Tex later this season, and then transitions almost exclusively to directing for titles like River's Edge, Paint It Black, Some Twin Peaks, Some Erie, Indiana, Homicide: Life on the Streets, Crossing Jordan, Carnival, Mad Men, Dexter, Nip Tuck, a couple Bosches, and in 2020 he directed Smiley Face Killers. The music here came from Saul Kaplan. He's the father of the director. He has composer credits back to the 40s on titles like Apache Trail, Alice in Wonderland, 1949, which is 2 years before Disney's, Rawhide Feature in 1951, Star Trek the Original Series, and Lies My Father Told Me. After this, he has a TV movie composer credit, and then what looks like a fan film reuse of his original series Star Trek scores. Cinematographer here was Andrew Davis. This was one of his last DP credits, ending with Angel next season, before moving to the director's chair to helm films like Above the Law, Under Siege, The Fugitive, Collateral Damage, and Holes. So he kind of stuck the landing there with some good stuff toward the end of that. The editor here was Robert Barrere. He was an assistant editor on The Last Detail, Shampoo, and They All Laughed. And after this, he edits Night Game, Silence of the Hams, and something called Headless Body in a Topless Bar. That sounds fun. Michael Eric Kramer played Carl. He doesn't show up again until Return to Horror High in 1987 as Donnie Porter. He's also Lieutenant Vokes in Project X and not many other familiar titles. Pamela Ludwig played Cory. Later this year, she's Connie in Tex and Jane in Split Image. She's also back as Lenore in Project X. Matt Dillon played Richie. Supposedly, he only went to the audition so he could skip school. This is technically his first film, but we've seen him so far in Little Darlings and My Bodyguard. He's back this season as the titular Tex in Tex, written and directed by one of this film's writers. Later, he stars in The Outsiders, Rumblefish, Singles, To Die For, In and Out, Wild Things, There's Something About Mary, Crash, Factotum. He's either you or me in You, Me, and Dupree, and he was the lead in Wayward Pines. You guys ever see Wayward Pines?
I don't think so.
It was a Shyamalan show, and two of the writers were the Duffer Brothers who went on to do Stranger Things. But I did the dailies on it when I was at Keep Me Posted, and it looked really cool. Apparently it's kind of like in the realm of Twin Peaks, sort of like a mystery up in mountains and stuff like that. More recently, he shows up in Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. Still haven't caught that one yet. A lot of people in it, though. Vincent Spano played Mark. This was his first major film role, despite being a bit more experienced. He was runner-up to Matt Dillon for the Richie part and helped him get up to speed on set. We just saw him as one of the gas thieves in A Stranger Is Watching, and later he appears in Rumblefish with Dillon, Alphabet City, Oscar, Alive, and he played a cop in one of my favorite Tales from the Crypt episodes called Two for the Show. He had a handful of directing credits, including Tales from the Crypt episode In the Groove. Tom Fergus played Claude, basically just this. That's a shame, he's pretty fun. Harry Northup played Doberman. He's a Scorsese regular with credits in Who's Knocking at My Door, Boxcar Bertha, Mean Streets, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Taxi Driver, and New York, New York. Later he shows up in 2 Minute Warning, and we've seen him now in Tom Horn and Used Cars. Later he's in Project X, Silence of the Lambs, Hero, Philadelphia, Father's Day, and The Manchurian Candidate remake.
You keep bringing up Project X because I was like,
when I was a lot of connections to it.
Well, and it's funny because when I was looking up everybody, I was like, oh man, I should show that to Pat and Jesse.
Project X?
If they haven't seen Project X.
I have not seen that. Andy Romano played Fred Willat, the father of Carl. He shows up in all the beach party stuff: Beach Party, Bikini Beach, Pajama Party, Beach Blanket Bingo, How to Stuff a Wild Bikini, and Ghost in the Invisible Bikini. After this,
Did you make up any of those?
I did not. Okay, those are all real.
Just checking. I wouldn't put it past you to make one up.
I wouldn't either.
I feel like Ghost in the Invisible Bikini is lazy because it's already invisible.
Yeah, so the whole thing's invisible.
Yeah.
After this, he's Principal Castleman in Return to Horror High. He's Pepper Leach in Major League. He's Murdoch in Pump Up the Volume, which is not unlike this, actually. Have you ever seen Pump Up the Volume?
I have not.
It's like Christian Slater runs a pirate radio station out of his bedroom, and he's like kind of a local celebrity, but it ends with another like massive citywide skirmish with police and stuff. Later, he's in Under Siege 2, Eraser, and Ghosts of Mississippi. Ellen Geer played Sandra Willat, that's the mother. Before this, she's in The Reavers, Koch. She's the hippie girlfriend Sunshine Door in Harold and Maude. We've seen her on the show now for a minisode in On the Nickel and Bloody Birthday. After this, she's in Irreconcilable Differences. She's Dr. Keela Marr in Star Trek TNG Silicon Avatar.
Oh, okay.
She's in Patriot Games. She's a voice in 8 episodes of Pirates of Darkwater. She's in Clear and Present Danger, Phenomenon, Odd Couple 2, Practical Magic, and Me, You, and Everyone We Know. Practical Magic, by the way, getting a sequel here pretty soon. Just announced this week.
You know, because I didn't recognize she's so much older in Silicon Avatar.
Right, yeah.
Because it would have been 20 years later.
Yeah. Richard Jamison played Cole. Before this, he's in Scarecrow and Every Which Way But Loose. He shows up in 3 MacGyver episodes, The Heist from season 1, and then he's a recurring character in the 2 Jimmy the Eraser Kendall episodes, where he's like a henchman of the big mafioso. Tiger Thompson played Johnny. We saw him last as Butch in Earthbound. Eric Lalich played Tip. He's the actual son of the woman playing his mother. Not much else, though. Christina Hansen played Lisa. 20 years before this, she was Betty Piper in Dinosaurs in 1960. Diane Riley played Marcy. She was Sandy in Ice Castles. Jeff Flurry played Outlaw. He's Roger in Text later this season. Lane Smith is Sloane. Before this, he's in The Last American Hero, Rooster Cogburn, Network. We've seen him now in a minisode review of On the Nickel and regular episodes Honeysuckle Rose, Resurrection, Prince of the City. He's back this season for Soggy Bottom USA and Francis. Later, he's in Red Dawn, Air America, My Cousin Vinny, Son-in-Law, and the role I know him best from, Perry White from Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Molly McCarthy played Principal. Before this, she was Laurie in Blast of Silence, 1961. Irene Lalich is the actual mother of the actor playing Tip and plays Tip's mother. Paul Cowan played Kid, not many other acting credits, a lot of producer credits on a handful of films, including The Crying Game. I think that's everything for Over the Edge. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoyed what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, Death Wish, The Education of Sonny Carson, Flesh Gordon, Golden Needles, Gone in 60 Seconds, Mr. Majestic, My Name is Nobody, Savage Sisters, The Tamarind Seed, Uptown Saturday Night, and The White Dawn for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Shoot the Moon, which IMDb describes like so. A mother of 4 is abandoned by her husband for a younger woman. Husband, wife, and children struggle to survive the seemingly inevitable divorce. We leave you now with a trailer for Shoot the Moon.
The electricity of Midnight Express. The excitement of fame. One man has captured them both. His name is Alan Parker. He creates the kinds of films that have never happened before. Now, it's happening again.
Why did Daddy leave us?
Well, I don't think he left you. I think he left me.
MGM presents Shoot the Moon, an emotional portrait of an American family with powerful performances by Albert Finney
This is my house. I fixed up this house.
and Diane Keaton,
Well, you're not at this house anymore, George. Remember you walked out feet first?
and a screenplay by 2-time Academy Award winner Bo Goldman.
Are you gonna let her get a divorce?
I think I'm gonna have to.
What happens to me?
It is honest, compelling, and uncompromising. It is a story of love, pain, anger, and tears, of needing, of hoping, of facing the truth.
I was never right for you, was I, George? It was like I sang all the music, but I never knew the words.
There is one thing about marriage that hasn't changed. The way you hurt when it begins to fall apart.
I loved you. God, I loved you.
Albert Finney, Diane Keaton, in an Alan Parker film, Shoot the Moon.